Hello, San Angelo, and welcome to the Live Daily News Show. I'm James Bellini.
And I'm Tessa Koskovich.
In news, we have 3 videos for y'all today.
The first is San Angelo Police Chief Travis Griffith, who held a press conference today concerning an officer using excessive force on a restrained woman in a police cruiser.
Our second interview is with ASU.
And the third is Amanda Weddle, San Angelo's new Animal Services Manager.
We'll get into all those interviews right after these messages from Jim Bass and Congressman August Pfluger.
Find your perfect Nissan at Jim Bass Nissan. With our incredible selection, generous factory rebates, and attractive dealer discounts, you can enjoy affordable monthly payments that fit your budget. Don't miss out on our amazing offers, like the stunning 2025 Nissan Frontier for just $499 per month. You can only find deals this great at Jim Bass Nissan, corner of Houston Hart at Arden Road, or shop 24/7 at jimbassnissan.com.
Republicans in Congress, alongside President Trump, delivered a transformative piece of legislation last month on America's 249th anniversary. The One Big Beautiful Bill Act is the largest working families tax cut package in American history. It is a massive win for Texans and will help foster an economy that is pro-growth, pro-worker, pro-family, pro-business, and pro-energy. The Working Families Tax Cut locks in President Trump's historic 2017 tax cuts, protecting over 475,000 taxpayers in Texas's 11th Congressional District from a devastating 26% tax increase, which would have been the largest in American history. Seniors in Texas, 88% of whom receive Social Security benefits, will now pay 0 taxes on those benefits because of this bill. Hourly workers will keep more of what they earn, with no tax on overtime pay, tips, and even interest on car loans for new American-made vehicles up to generous limits. This will put thousands of dollars back in the pockets of hardworking Texans. This legislation also delivers $13.5 billion in border reimbursements for states like Texas and makes the most significant investments in border security ever seen. It reclaims America's energy independence, lowering energy costs for all Americans, creating high-paying jobs in the Permian Basin, and reversing President Biden's disastrous energy policies. Congressman Pfluger fought to make sure Texas values were reflected in this package, from much-needed support for farmers and ranchers through strategic investments, to ending forced taxpayer funding of abortion, to nearly $150 billion in military investments that will directly support the incredible men and women serving at Goodfellow Air Force Base and Fort Hood. It does all this and so much more. The American people were tired of business as usual in Washington. The Working Families Tax Cut package is a clear response to what the American people demanded in November: rein in wasteful spending, secure the border, and make life genuinely affordable again. Nothing is perfect, but this legislation delivers historic, tangible wins for Texans.
Thank you for being here today. I ran on accountability and transparency. Living out accountability and transparency is very difficult. Today, we live out one of those difficult times. Over the past several months, the San Angelo Police Department's Office of Professional Standards, it's commonly referred to as Internal Affairs, conducted an internal investigation regarding a use of force incident involving Officer Jason Gann. In late June of 2025, Officer Gann arrested a female subject during a family violence investigation. The female was 18 years of age, 5 foot, 100 pounds. She was not cooperative and was intoxicated. The female was appropriately handcuffed, seatbelted, and had her legs restrained due to her resistive behavior. Prior to leaving the scene, officers attempted to readjust the leg restraints, during which the female kicked Officer Gann in the right hip. Following this, Officer Gann grabbed the female's legs and pulled the rib hobble, which is what helped restrain her legs, tight. He then leaned in the patrol vehicle and struck her head, rendering her unconscious for a period of time. The female was transported to an area hospital and treated for injuries. Throughout a routine oversight process, the department staff identified the incident within hours as being concerning, prompting an internal investigation. Officer Gann was placed on an alternative duty status, meaning that he was not able to enforce the laws. He was basically restricted to only be able to do administrative work. Upon the conclusion of the investigation, it was determined that Officer Gann's use of force was not in accordance with the San Angelo Police Department's policy and procedures. The force was found to be excessive in nature. The Texas Rangers reviewed the case and determined that there was no criminal elements for an offense. Considering the multiple levels of restraint that was already applied, the size disparity between the officer and the female subject, the degree of force that was used, Officer Gann's lack of accountability and response to retraining, Officer Gann was indefinitely suspended from the San Angelo Police Department this morning. We are releasing a small part of the video and blurring the face of the female subject. I requested the blurred video out of respect for the young lady involved. At this time, we do not have an external complaint. So I wanted to make sure that we give her that respect in this process. We're now going to watch the video on the screens this time. I'm going to readjust the handcuffs right now. I'm sorry, these are her popples, which is up on her legs or her ankles. They opens the door, Dixie pulls tight, and punched her in the face, rendering her unconscious. Now I will say, there's a whole lot more than just that short clip, but this is ultimately what it's boiled down to. When we look at the totality of everything, we have to make tough decisions. I'll just say that that's not appropriate, it's not what we do, and this is not acceptable behavior. When you couple that with the fact that of lack of accountability, ultimately the decision was made for him to be indefinitely suspended. That basically means that he is not employed. It's worded that way because you have due process. He can appeal for his job back through civil service. And so that's why it's indefinite suspension, meaning until it either is found justified by a court or a governing body. So that's kind of where we're at.
Hello everybody, James Bellini here with Kenna Archer from ASU.
Hi.
Miss Archer, how you doing?
I'm doing very well. I'm glad to be here.
All right, we had kind of an interesting conversation before we started. Let's just talk about what we're talking about first, about the speaker series and everything.
Okay, yes. So I run a lecture series at Angelo State. It's the History Lecture Series. And we're always looking for ways to commemorate anniversaries and meaningful events. And this year, 2025, happens to be the 80th anniversary of World War II's ending, 1945, right? And so we wanted to do something with that. Really, August would have been more appropriate, but for students, October works. And so we are running a month-long series of events to help really just sort of study the history and the impact and the meaning and really even just the legacy of World War II. And what makes it special, as I remind my students about this all the time, is that they are one of the last generations, really maybe the last generation of students, to have a chance to engage with people that lived this.
Right.
Because, of course, like this generation is dying out, right?
Right.
And so I tell them, in a sense, you get to sort of help keepsake that and help decide, in a sense, what becomes of that. And you also get to talk to these people who lived it, and that is a really cool opportunity. And so, yeah, we're just setting up different types of events to engage different types of students.
All right.
Yeah.
So what kind of events are we talking about?
Yeah, so we started the year with an art contest open to all students, and it was any sort of visual art. So we got some like digital media, we got acrylic painting, oil painting, we got sketches, and it covers all sorts of topics. We didn't limit them in any way. We just said it has to deal with World War II. So we have students who looked at the Holocaust, of course. We had students who looked at, there was a famine in Vietnam in 1945 that was a direct outgrowth of World War II that sometimes students don't know about, but we had students engaging that. We had students looking at Hiroshima, looking at traditional battlefields. So it's been really fun to see their reflection on this, and they were required to write a written statement, just reflecting on what they did. And it's been really interesting for me on this sort of jury for the contest to read through that and see why they wrote what they wrote. But we also have, we have a roundtable coming up on October 6th, actually. That is with our oral history team. And our oral history team has been interviewing local San Angelans who either were in World War II or Korea or Vietnam, and they're going to be talking about that work. And then we have a lecture that looks at the Holocaust at the end of the month on the 30th. And then sort of the grounding point is a keynote lecture with a historian out of Texas A&M that we're bringing in, and he's going to look at sort of that transition from wartime to peacetime Germany. What does it mean for a war to end? But then you have an occupation, of course. And that's our big event. We'll announce the winners for the art contest. We have a social hour with lots of food and some period time music as well.
All right.
Yeah.
Where do people go to find all this information out if they want to get involved?
Yeah, so there's a website. It is at www.angelo.edu/aftermaths. There have also been flyers sent out. There's a press release that's coming out. And everything on that website is laid out pretty cleanly, pretty clearly, and it covers everything I've talked about here today. And of course, front and center on that website as well is the fact that it's the Dorsey V. Hardiman family that has helped fund all of this. And of course, I'd like to say thank you. The Dorsey V. Hardiman family has an endowed chair in history, and their funding has made this completely possible.
All right. Now, we had talked beforehand, but obviously people talk about history, it'd be kind of dry.
Yeah.
But you're an environmental historian.
Yes.
Can you explain to everybody what an environmental historian is?
Yes, so an environmental historian is somebody who looks at history from a slightly different perspective. So we look at, for example, the relationship between people and the environment, or we study how people think about the land, or how they use the land, or how the land impacts history in ways that maybe you don't expect. So it's not usually news stories. Sometimes it's news stories, but usually it's new perspectives that open up new lines of questions that sometimes you feel a little silly for not having thought of them yourself. But it's, I think, a very engaging and innovative way to look at stories that otherwise many of my students have been hearing since they were in second and third and fourth grade in elementary.
Right. Their grandparents raised them and told them stories about World War II and everything. Right.
Yes, so I get to come in and, say something like, okay, you know about this battle, but did you know about the famine that hit right before the battle that occurred because of a drought that occurred after a flood? And so I get to come in and say, okay, let's ask different questions. Or I'll say something, as we were talking about, like, did you know more people died in avalanches than died in battles in this theater? And it also gets to do stories about the soldiers. You think about the soldiers, and this is, of course, not diminishing what happened at the landings at Normandy in any way, but we remember D-Day, and we think about what happened there. When you're trying to get to the social history of this war, you don't necessarily think about the men dying in avalanches. Right. Or the men who are left vulnerable because they're beached on a coral atoll in the middle of the Pacific. Right. So new experiences and new just sort of human elements of the story that are really, really engaging. I had a student a couple of years ago who told me that weathermen were the unsung hero of World War II. And I was like, not wrong. I mean, it was the weathermen who told Dwight D. Eisenhower that D-Day was go. And the Germans didn't have weather stations as far up into the Arctic as we did. They didn't have as good a data. They, for example, thought storms wouldn't clear. We thought storms would, so they didn't expect the landings. In part because we had the better weather data.
Well, no, I mean, in Japan during World War II, didn't they abort one of the drops because of the weather?
Yes.
And they circled to another city?
Yes.
Wasn't that part?
That was part of it.
That was part of it.
Yeah. I mean, the locations for the atomic bombs shift in action in real time. Yeah, because you can't see through the scope to the ground. Yeah.
That's insane.
That's a big change. Yeah.
No, that is. And that's I know World War II is 80 years ago, so it's not super recent, but you just look at the Civil War or the Revolutionary War where you're sending orders and maybe your messenger got, taken by the enemy, or maybe he got lost on the way there, or maybe he hit a storm and couldn't make it. Yeah. So those orders never made it through. Yeah. And it just changes the outcome of a war.
It does. At one point, George Washington dealt with the smallpox epidemic and had to decide whether or not to, we would say vaccinate, it's really inoculate, his troops against smallpox. And the decision he made there could have potentially changed the outcome of a Revolutionary War that sort of we owe the beginnings of our nation to, right?
We'd all be under King George right now, everybody.
So sometimes these environmental perspectives, it's like the butterfly or the ripple effect. When you trace them out, it's a really, really, really big change to the story. And sometimes it's on a smaller scale, but I mean, I just really appreciate. And so we have had in this lecture series, I gave a lecture on atomic bombing and sort of the environmental impact of that. And that was a way to get to just a different angle on World War II and a different angle on the atomic age. And so I told my students at that lecture and the other attendees, I was like, many of us know the stories of the atomic bombs that were dropped, but do you know what got us there? Do you know the legacy in Bikini Atoll?
No, like you said, it's not to diminish anything that has happened, but these things do affect the things that happen.
Yes.
And it's a really, I was going to circle back because it is interesting to look at and look at it through a different lens, and maybe somebody who was actually there who dealt with things that maybe the environment.
Absolutely. And in fact, with the oral history team that's doing the roundtable on October 6th, in talking with veterans, you often do have veterans who will tell stories of, the mosquitoes, the lice, the flies, the heat, the rain, and they will get into sort of the climactic elements usually, or the terrain was really, really rough. I haven't been to Normandy, it's on my bucket list, but if you've seen pictures, the terrain there absolutely played a decisive role in those beach landings and how they played out. And then once you make the beach landings, how you proceed into the interior in France. And so I love highlighting those other angles. Our keynote speaker for this keynote lecture on October 14th is a military historian named Adam Seep out of Texas A&M, which has a really good military history program, not surprising.
Right.
And he is actually coming to speak with my upper level students in my environmental history course about sort of environmental issues and environmental activism in occupied Germany after the war. He's doing that at the same time that he's here for his keynote. And I was very glad that when he offered to do that, because again, it's just a different perspective on something that sometimes we might feel like we know pretty well.
Because obviously in high school and No Child Left Behind, you kind of glossed over all of it. And it took a real special teacher to really sit down and say, no, this is what. Yeah. But now it's at another level where you have everything affecting what you already know. Yeah. It's really interesting. And can anybody show up to these?
Yeah, anybody can show up to the events. Now, the keynote address is on the 14th. It's in the evening. There's a social hour from 5 to 6 with food, and we're going to have the entries from the art contest on display. And then the keynote itself is from 6 to 7:30. That is in the Joyce Murphy Auditorium in the administration building. And so that is definitely geared to the public. Anyone can come. The other two events are also open to the public, but they're in the afternoon, so it might be harder for some people who work. For example, 3:30 to 5 on October 6th is our roundtable with local veterans. And then 3:30 to 5 on October 30th is our lecture on the Holocaust. And those are geared a little more towards students just because of the time, but they are open to anybody. We do have community members that stop by our afternoon events. And I tell my students, I tell my friends, I tell people at my church, I'm like, come for the food, come for the extra credit, stay for the historical enrichment. They're all going to be really good events. And one of the things that really excites me, it's called aftermaths, plural, because again, there are multiple things you're wrestling with, right, when the war ends. And one of the things I really love about this is that we are approaching the history of this war in so many ways. You're looking at the Holocaust, but you're also looking at oral history and these living veterans, their stories, but you're also looking at sort of a more traditional lecture, but it's looking at occupation and the end of the war. But you also have this art contest where students are asked to reflect in a more creative and sort of visceral and visual way. And I really love that we're able to commemorate the war because I'm a nerd. I love history. I have family connections to this. I want to honor the men who serve, but I also like that we are getting this opportunity to highlight new rabbit trails. I hope people come away from this really engaged in World War II history. If I could create a couple little nerds who are interested in World War II history, that would be even better.
All right. Well, Miss Archer, did we miss anything?
I don't think so. Just again, it's angelo.edu / aftermaths. It's October 6th, October 14th, October 30th, and we would absolutely love to see people there.
All right. Well, we appreciate you coming in today.
Yeah, of course. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Back to you.
It's hard to believe how reckless some people can be and how hard they fight against real victims. You need a partner who consistently beats the giants and who will never, ever flinch.
And welcome back, everybody. James Blaine here with Amanda Weddle. She is the Animal Services Manager here in San Angelo. Ms. Weddle, how are we doing today?
We're doing really good. We started off adoptions yesterday, October 1st, and getting a lot of traction and interest in the animals. We had our first adoption yesterday morning.
Good deal.
So we're really excited to roll out this program.
All right. Now, you're new to San Angelo.
Yes, I am.
How long have you been in San Angelo?
4 weeks.
And how have those 4 weeks gone for you?
I've actually liked it a lot. It's very nice to head into work and have minimal traffic and minimal issues. A 10-mile drive used to take me 45 minutes, so it's a
I know you're
big
you're from
change.
DFW looking at 10 miles, like, oh man, I gotta wake up an hour and a half. But it's like, no, you can wake up 10 minutes before
Exactly.
work. But yeah, just kind of talk about, I guess, your past experience and how you think that's gonna help you here. I mean,
Absolutely. So I've been in animals care since I was 15. I started in high school working at vet clinics. Original plan was to go veterinarian. Decided against that later on, just financially, and slipped into animal services when I was living in College Station. I loved it and stuck with it. I stayed in it for about 6 years, took a break and went back to college and worked veterinary again.
all right.
And then after about 6 years of that, I kind of topped out as far as where I could go without going back to school again, and decided to go back to animal services. I love serving the public, serving the citizens, and it's where my true passion is. So I get to do my two favorite passions of taking care of animals and taking care of the public.
All right. Now, does San Angelo have any unique problems? I mean, you're from College Station. You said you were from, the DFW area. Are there any unique issues in San Angelo, or are these all kind of just like you've seen all this before?
Each area is a little different, but for the most part, enforcement of leash laws, vaccinations, public safety for animals running loose, both for the animal and the public. Those type of things are pretty synonymous in general with animals. And it's a lot about educating the public and making sure that they know what they can and cannot do and what helps them have a happier home with their animal, things of that nature.
All right, yeah, we've had the dog catcher come on before, talk about some of the issues he's faced, and what do you hope to accomplish in San Angelo?
So one of my key things is enforcement for public safety, and with that, education comes into play. I was very heavy into your Citizens Police Academy and HOA meetings, things of that nature, where I previously was in Frisco, and I'd like to integrate that here as well. Love working with Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts of America, things of that nature, because it helps the younger generation learn about animals as they're growing up and helps them have a better companion animal. So things of that nature I really want to get involved in. When you do the education portion and help people learn what they can and cannot do and what they should and should not do, it helps with the enforcement side, because then they know you can't go walking down the street with your dog off a leash. They know that you have to keep your animal vaccinated, things of that nature. So the other part of this is we have a very high initiative right now here in San Angelo that we are working with spay and neutering your pet. Not only is it good as far as the overpopulation of pets, but it's better for your animal. There's a lot of
health-wise too.
Exactly. There's a lot of cancer risks, aggression risks, more prone to run and roam. So it really helps out with a lot of that. So we're really trying to get that information out and get information of where people can go to get that done. And people that are refusing to comply with the city ordinance, we do hold them accountable for that.
All right. What does that look like if somebody just? I mean, if it's like a first time deal and it's like, oh man, I really didn't know. But if it's somebody that you're consistently dealing with, what does enforcement look there?
So you can receive a citation for any violation of the city ordinance. It's similar to if you don't keep your car registered properly. You can receive a citation for that. Then we do follow up to ensure that you do get it taken care of, because if you get a citation, you pay the citation, but you don't fix the problem, it's going to continue to be a problem.
Right.
So we do follow-ups to ensure that they are getting in compliance, and we do hold the owners accountable if they don't.
Okay.
So it can be multiple citations at times.
And get pretty pricey eventually.
Very much so. Very much so.
All right. So, and let's talk about the shelter here.
Mm-hmm.
You've been out there?
Yes, I've been out there for
right.
now 3 weeks. This is week 3.
You just got here. I don't know.
This is week 3. So.
But I mean, do you see any problems with the shelter that can be fixed, and then maybe are there some long-term issues that maybe need to take time to get fixed? Or
so we do want to do a remodel, revamp. The building is an older building, so like any building, you have to maintain and fix problems as they arise. So we are addressing that and looking at doing remodels and repairs and things of that nature. We're also looking at other avenues as far as what would be better suited for the public and the animals, as far as a complete remodel of the setup.
Okay.
But we're in the early stages of that. I'm still getting acclimated. I actually still get lost in the shelter sometimes trying to navigate the rooms. But we are looking at, where are our priorities so that we can work down the list.
I know, I don't want you to come in and just blow everything up. And, well, I mean, it's just working here. You get the list come in. It's like, well, we have to adopt out 20 dogs. They're going to be put down, and it always seems like that's an issue. It always seems like shelter space is an issue. I always feel like the shelter is full. I mean, how do we help that problem in San Angelo?
Overpopulation is the biggest problem. The spaying and neutering, that is the root cause of continual influx of animals. Yes, people are going to get more animals as they progress, through life. And one pet passes, they get a new pet. But making sure that they're fixed, one cat can have a litter, then get pregnant while she's taking care of that litter. So it's an endless cycle, and making sure spay and neutering and keeping your animals contained so they can't breed with other loose animals or break into yards and breed with those animals, that is essential. What we are also looking at, like I said, with the adoptions, we are opening up a way for those animals to get a home. We have not closed the door for rescues to also pull. So we have the availability for the local rescues to pull. Even though the partnership has ended with PAWS, they're still welcome to come and get animals, and they have. So it's been very good help. And making sure that we're following through with rabies vaccines and just the general care. Fence repairs, when you notice a board loose, making sure it's repaired properly to keep the animal contained. Those things are going to help the overpopulation. Unfortunately, with a municipal shelter, we are charged with taking care of the public.
Right.
So we are not going to be turning away stray animals. With that being said, unfortunately, there's only so much that can be cared for properly before that standard gets lowered, and we're not going to let that standard get lowered for those animals.
You don't ever want that to happen.
Correct.
Because once you lower it a little bit, and then you start lowering it more and more and more, and then where's your standard?
Correct. And so with that being said, unfortunately, we do have to make the difficult decisions at times to humanely euthanize if we are over a capacity for those animals' welfare.
No, I'm not one of those people who, you can save all of them. No, you can't. But you can try to, certainly, and you can try to implement new things to make it easier, because the shelter's always full. And I mean, you've been around the state of Texas. Our shelter's full everywhere.
Yes.
So it's not just San Angelo, it's everywhere.
It's not just San Angelo, it's not just Texas. It's pretty much the majority of the southern states deal with this. And you're
Where
seeing,
the northern states have.
Well, for the longest time, they actually had openings quite a bit, and that's where a lot of where you would hear about transporting dogs to other states.
Okay, yeah, we still hear about some of that.
Correct. But even they are starting to see an influx of incoming animals, and so this is a nationwide problem.
Okay.
And again, it goes to the spay and neuter. Just because your dog looks good to not be neutered doesn't mean it's healthy for him. And in the long run, 6 more animals every 6 months or so by breeding, it just compounds the problem.
Yeah, I'm also one of those where you have a heart, obviously.
Yes.
You see a stray dog, a puppy on the side of the road, you don't want to just leave it there.
Correct.
You want to do what's best for the animal, but maybe you can't take on an animal. But, I mean, in the past, people have messaged us and messaged me personally, hey, what do? I just found this dog. I didn't pick my kids up. I didn't want to leave it there on the side of the road. But it used to be, no, you can't drop that animal off at the shelter.
No, we do have open intake for stray animals, and if you find a stray, bring it to the shelter. Do not bring it in the front lobby. And that's for disease control, animals getting into arguments, because some don't like others, just like people. Some people don't like other people.
Right.
They have their own personalities too. And so it's just easier if you come in, you do the paperwork at the front desk, and then we have a side drive that you meet an officer or a shelter staff over, and they'll get the animal from you and take it inside and start the intake process. So it's just a safer environment to do it that way.
All right. Well, Ms. Weddle, this education you're talking about, is this all available online? Or is this something that you're still putting out there for people to go research and look up? Or?
I am still building it. I am starting from scratch.
I'm sorry, I know you're brand new.
I want to have it tailored to San Angelo, though.
Right.
So it is one of my long-term goals. And when I say long-term, I'm talking within a year. Once I get acclimated and get the system down and everything, I do want to look at that stuff. We have started, one of the things that we have heard and we've listened to is on our social media Facebook page. We do put our stray animals on there so that if someone's missing their pet, they can see. But now, because we are doing adoptions, we're also trying to do possibly short videos and pictures of adoptable animals. So you will be seeing those periodically. So we are going to have an increased presence on social media, and we're probably going to be doing some educational things on there as well.
Okay.
Prior to me starting, they'd already started rolling that out. They did a fence repair video. They showed kind of a typical day of our shelter staff, how they clean the kennels and things of that nature. So we're really looking to expand that. All
right. Social media is the way to go. Everybody has Facebook or something to
I started in 2005 in animal services, and Facebook was just starting and still college based, and so it's amazing to see the changes from the beginning of my career to now.
I mean, it's got to be helpful, though.
Very much so. I mean, even when I was still a field officer, if I had someone who wasn't answering their phone, because let's be honest, who answers a phone number that they don't know?
No. I don't need to talk to some,
I would
Nigerian prince or something.
But
like
I would
that.
text the person. And,
Right.
Hey, this is Amanda with this animal services. Please give me a call about this dog. And I'd say the name so that they would know, oh, that's my dog.
Oh, this is a legit deal.
Correct.
Right.
So that hopefully it prompts them to call me. Or if it's not the phone number anymore, if the phone number hasn't been updated, that person calls me and says, sorry, you got the wrong number.
Right. All right.
So.
Well, Ms. Weddle, did you want to talk about anything else?
Not at this time. I think everybody's going to be pleased overall. I encourage everybody to come and visit the shelter. We are still going to be Monday through Friday at this time, as we get the systems working, and we are looking at later expanding our hours to Saturday, but at this time it's going to stay Monday through Friday. But we do have a lot of great adoptable animals. So.
All right. So going out to the shelter, take a look. And
yeah.
Don't get a dog for Christmas or to get a puppy because it's going to grow into a dog and we're going to run into more issues, right?
Well, we have a great outcome coordinator with us who is handling the adoption talks. And so if there's going to be red flags of, one dog may be too hyper for a certain person, they do counsel and caution when it doesn't look like it's going to be a forever situation, or it may look like it's going to be a bad fit. Ultimately, it's the person's decision what they want, which animal they want to adopt, but we do try to counsel them that way they can make the best decision for their home.
All right. Well, Ms. Weddle, we appreciate you coming in today.
Absolutely. I appreciate being invited.
Absolutely. Anytime. Anytime you need to get something out, come on in and we'll do this.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Back to you. We'll be right back after this message from Conno's Diamonds and Coins.
When it comes to unique pieces you can't find anywhere else, Conno's Diamonds and Coins is your one-stop shop. With over 24 years in the diamond and coin industry, Conno's Diamonds and Coins is West Texas's choice for diamonds, jewelry, coins, silver, and gold. Owner Bill Conno stands by his work and offers free consultations, including estate jewelry. Don't just trust anyone with your valuables. Come see the staff at Conno's at 1016 West Beauregard in San Angelo.
Into the weather, highs hang around the upper 80s all week. Right now it's 89 degrees outside and mostly sunny. The low tonight drops down to around 64. Tomorrow the high jumps up to around 87, and that gives way to a low down around 64 again.
On Wednesday, it'll be mostly sunny with a high around 86, and that night comes into a low at 63. On Thursday, the high ticks back up a little bit to 88, and the low Thursday night dips down to 60.
And thank you for watching the Live Daily News Show.
The only locally owned news show in the Concho Valley.
Give us a follow on Facebook, X, and other social media platforms.
And download the San Angelo Live mobile app.
For the Live team here, I'm James Bellini.
And I'm Tessa Koskovich.
And we'll